The wedding was supposed to be the start of everything. The vows, the promises, the laughter, it all blurred into white roses and camera flashes. Yet beneath the beauty, something unseen had already begun to rot. Claire smiled beside her husband, Ethan, her fingers intertwined with his. But her gaze flickered toward the woman standing at the edge of the crowd, his mother, Eleanor. Graceful, elegant, and distant, she watched them with eyes that didn't smile. To everyone else, it looked like admiration. But Claire felt it, the quiet weight of judgment. In the days that followed, that look lingered. Eleanor called every morning, visited every weekend, and somehow always knew more about Ethan's schedule than Claire did. "She's just adjusting," Ethan said when Claire complained. "It's been hard for her since Dad passed." Claire tried to understand. She invited Eleanor for dinner, bought her favorite wine, even framed an old photo of her and Ethan for the hallway. But no gesture softened her. Every word from Eleanor was laced with something sharp. "You must be so busy. I'll clean the kitchen for you. You cook well." Dear though Ethan prefers things less salty, Claire smiled politely, each comment cutting a little deeper. Then came the night she overheard them talking in the study. Eleanor's voice was low but firm. "She's sweet, Ethan, but she doesn't understand you like I do. She never will." Silence. Then Ethan's voice, soft. "She's trying." Mom, trying isn't the same as belonging. Claire stood in the hallway, the laughter from their wedding echoing like a cruel memory. That night, she lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling. In the darkness, one truth settled like death: she wasn't fighting for her marriage. She was fighting for space in her husband's heart. And she was losing. The weeks passed like quiet storms. Claire began noticing small shifts. Ethan answering his mother's calls in another room. Dinners cut short because Mom needs help with the bills. Weekends rearranged to include Eleanor without asking her first. What had once been a home for two slowly turned into a shared space for three. One evening, Claire set the table for dinner. The candles flickered. The pasta was warm. The wine poured. But Ethan didn't show up. Instead, she received a message, "eating with Mom tonight. She made your favorite, her favorite." The irony burned. When he finally came home, she tried to stay calm. "You could have told me," she said. "It was last minute," he replied. "You know how she gets when she's alone." Claire clenched her jaw. "And what about when I'm alone?" Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Please, not tonight. That night." As he fell asleep beside her, his phone buzzed again. "Eleanor, did she get upset?" "Don't let her guilt you, darling. You did nothing wrong." The next morning, Claire packed her things for a short trip just 2 days away, to visit a friend. When she returned, there were changes. Eleanor's framed photo now sat on the bedside table. Her favorite china replaced Claire's in the kitchen. Even the scent of her perfume lingered in the hallway. It was as if the house itself had chosen sides. Standing there, suitcase still in hand, Claire whispered to the empty room, "You already have everything, don't you?" And somewhere deep inside, the first cracks of resentment began to bloom. Days turned into months, and Claire's silence became her only defense. Every conversation with Ethan felt like walking through glass, careful, fragile, painful. He didn't notice her distance. He was too busy tending to his mother. "Mom's not feeling well again," he'd say, leaving mid-dinner. Claire stopped asking when he'd be back. One evening, while cleaning the living room, she found Eleanor's cardigan draped across the sofa. The smell of her perfume was fresh. She realized then that Eleanor had been there that afternoon again, unannounced. Anger tightened her chest. She called Ethan. "Why was your mother here?" she asked. "She dropped off soup," he said casually. "You're overreacting. She has her own house," Claire snapped. "Why is she always in ours?" "Because she belongs here," he said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire hung up. That night, she opened a new document on her laptop. Divorce. What to know before you decide. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard but didn't type. She wasn't ready to destroy her marriage. She just wanted to stop disappearing inside it. Days later, Eleanor called her directly. "Claire, I think it's time we stop pretending," she said in her calm, cutting tone. "You'll never be enough for him. You're trying to replace me, and that's something no woman can do." Claire's hand trembled. "I don't want to replace you," she said softly. "I just want to be his wife, then learn what that really means." Eleanor replied. The call ended, but the words didn't. That night, Claire packed her bag and left a note on the table. Asterisk, "I need space to remember who I am." Asterisk. She didn't know where she was going, but for the first time in months, she felt like the decision was hers. Claire rented a small apartment on the other side of the city. It was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that forced her to listen to her own thoughts. She filled her days with work, long walks, and unanswered messages from Ethan. He called twice in the first week, then stopped. Each missed call felt like both a wound and a relief. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, she saw a picture on social media: Ethan and Eleanor at dinner, smiling, glasses raised. The caption read, "Just the two of us again." Something inside her broke. That night, Claire poured herself a glass of wine and wrote in her journal for the first time in months. Asterisk, "Maybe love isn't about who you choose, but what you choose to lose for it." Asterisk. A few days later, Ethan appeared at her door, looking exhausted. "I can't do this anymore," he said. Claire's heart leapt, hope and fear colliding. "Then come home," she whispered. He shook his head. "That's not what I mean. I can't keep trying to make peace between the two of you. You both want all of me, and I'm tired of splitting in half." Tears welled in her eyes. "I never wanted to compete with her, and yet here we are," he said softly. There was no anger in his voice, only sorrow. He looked at her one last time before leaving. "I just wish love didn't have to mean choosing." When the door closed, Claire sank to the floor. For the first time, she understood he hadn't chosen Eleanor over her. He'd chosen peace over pain. And maybe that was the only choice left. The days blurred into each other, each one quieter than the last. Claire returned to her job, went through the motions, but everything felt dimmed, as if her world had been drained of color. At night, she replayed their last conversation. His tired eyes, his voice trembling with truth. Asterisk, "You both want all of me." Asterisk. Maybe he was right. Maybe she hadn't been fighting for love, but for ownership of it. One rainy afternoon, she received a message from an unknown number. It was Eleanor. Asterisk, "He's not doing well. You should come." Asterisk. Claire hesitated for hours before finally driving across town. When she arrived, Eleanor's expression was softer than she remembered, older somehow. "He's been sick. Stress, exhaustion, guilt," she said quietly. Ethan was lying on the couch, pale and thin, but he smiled when he saw her. "You came," he whispered. Claire knelt beside him, her hand finding his. "You should have called," she said. He shrugged weakly. "Didn't think you'd want to." "Don't be stupid," she muttered, tears threatening to fall. For the first time, Eleanor stood in the doorway silently, not as an intruder, but as a witness. When Ethan fell asleep, Claire turned to her. "I never wanted to take him from you," she said. "I just wanted to be part of his life." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "And I never wanted to lose him," she admitted. "But I forgot he was a man. Not my little boy." The two women sat together in uneasy peace, the sound of rain filling the silence. For the first time, they weren't enemies, just two people who had loved the same man too much, in different ways. And for once, that love didn't feel like a battle. For the next few days, Claire visited often. The house she once called home now felt foreign, but Ethan's soft smile still pulled her in. They spoke carefully, as if both were afraid to wake old ghosts. Eleanor stayed mostly in the background, watching her son regain strength and her daughter-in-law rediscover gentleness. One afternoon, while Claire was making tea, she overheard Ethan and Eleanor talking. "I don't want you to worrying about me anymore," he said. You've both carried too much of me. Eleanor's voice trembled. I just wanted to keep you safe. And you did, Mom, he replied. But now I need to live, not be protected. Claire stepped into the room quietly and placed the tea on the table. Eleanor smiled faintly. He's always been braver than I thought. Maybe he learned it from you. Claire answered. The three of them sat together for the first time in months, not as rivals, but as something closer to a family. Later that night, Eleanor walked Claire to the door. You're good for him, she said softly. And I was wrong. Love isn't a possession. Claire's eyes shimmered. We both learned it the hard way. As she drove home, she realized that something had shifted. Not everything was fixed, but the weight between them had lifted. For the first time in a long while, she could imagine a future that wasn't defined by anger or competition, but by peace. And though she didn't know what tomorrow would bring, she finally believed that all three of them might have room in the same story. A few weeks later, Ethan had recovered enough to return to work. Life slowly found its rhythm again, though everything between them felt fragile like glass that had been glued back together. Claire visited the house occasionally, helping Eleanor with small things, bringing groceries, keeping conversation gentle and neutral. One afternoon, as they sat on the porch, Eleanor said quietly, "You know, he talks about you every day." Claire smiled softly. "I don't think I'm ready to move back yet." "Good," Eleanor replied. "Take your time. Love should never come from guilt." They sat in comfortable silence until Ethan came home, the sun dipping behind him. For a moment, it almost looked like the day she married him, except now there was no illusion of perfection. Later that evening, Ethan took Claire for a walk by the lake. "When I thought I'd lost you," he said, "I realized how much of my life was built around trying to please everyone but myself." Claire looked at him, her voice trembling. "And what do you want now?" "I want peace," he said. "And I want you in it." She smiled faintly. "Then we start over, no sides, no battles." He nodded. When they returned, Eleanor was waiting at the door, holding a framed picture of the three of them from their first dinner after the wedding. "I think we all deserve a second chance," she said softly. For the first time, Claire didn't feel threatened by her presence. That night, she sat by the window of her small apartment, staring at the lights across the city. She wasn't sure if love could ever be simple again, but maybe it didn't have to be. Maybe this, the messy, imperfect version of it, was what love was always meant to be. Spring deepened, and with it, a fragile kind of peace settled among them. Claire began spending weekends at the house again, though she still kept her apartment a reminder of who she had become on her own. Eleanor's health started to waver, and this time, Claire was the one who noticed first. "You look pale," she said one morning, helping her to the couch. Eleanor waved her off with a small laugh. "Just age catching up." But later that evening, Ethan found her faint in the kitchen. The next days blurred into hospital visits and quiet prayers. Claire stayed by her side, holding her hand even when Eleanor could barely speak. "Why are you here?" Eleanor whispered one night. "Because family doesn't leave," Claire replied softly. Eleanor smiled weakly. "I thought I was protecting him, but I was just afraid of being forgotten." "You never were," Claire said. "You just didn't let anyone show you." When Eleanor opened her eyes again, there were tears. "You saved more than my son's marriage. You saved me from my own pride for the first time." Claire saw the woman not as a rival, but as a mother who had loved fiercely. Weeks later, Eleanor returned home frailer but peaceful. She sat in the garden often, wrapped in a blanket, watching the two of them laugh in the kitchen. One afternoon, she whispered to Ethan, "She's your heart, you know." He nodded, looking at Claire through the window. "And you're the reason it still beats." The words made her smile. For the first time, their love wasn't divided, it was shared. Summer came quietly, warm and full of second chances. The house no longer felt divided. Laughter filled its corners again. Eleanor's strength returned little by little. though she now walked slower and spoke softer. One morning, as they shared breakfast on the porch, she placed her hand over Claire's. "You've given me something I didn't know I needed," she said. "Peace," Claire smiled. "You gave it to me first." Ethan joined them, his arm around Claire's shoulder, his eyes soft with a kind of love that had matured through pain. "I used to think love was about choosing sides," he said. "But maybe it's about learning how to stand in the middle." Later that week, they hosted a small family dinner, simple food, gentle music, no pretense. Eleanor watched them from across the table, her expression unreadable but peaceful. When Claire stood to clear the dishes, Eleanor touched her arm. "Let them be," she whispered. "You've done enough." That night, as the stars blinked above the quiet house, Claire stepped outside alone. The air smelled of lavender and rain. For the first time, she felt completely present, not as the wife trying to prove herself, nor as the woman fighting for love, but simply as herself. Behind her, the soft sound of laughter drifted from the window, the sound of a family that had finally stopped breaking. She looked back at the warm glow of the home they had all rebuilt together and thought, maybe love isn't about being chosen, maybe it's about staying when no one asks you to. The thought made her smile. Autumn came quietly, the air crisp and golden. The house was full again of warmth, of life, of second chances. Eleanor spent her mornings in the garden, painting the lavender bushes that had started to bloom again. Claire often joined her with tea, the silence between them no longer strained but peaceful. "Do you ever regret it?" Eleanor asked one day, eyes focused on her brush. "Leaving?" Claire smiled faintly. "No, I think I needed to lose everything to see what really mattered." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Sometimes love needs distance to grow." Inside, Ethan prepared dinner, humming softly something he hadn't done in years. That night, they all ate together, laughter echoing through the walls like music. After dinner, Claire found an old photograph in the drawer, their wedding day, Eleanor standing between them, her smile half-guarded. She looked at it for a long time before placing it back. "We were all just trying to hold on," she murmured. Later, as she stood on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan wrapped his arms around her. "I'm glad you stayed," he whispered. "I almost didn't," she said honestly. "But then I realized love isn't about who you can't live without. It's about who you choose to keep living with." He kissed her forehead gently. "Then keep choosing me from inside." Eleanor called out, "Are you two still out there?" Claire laughed, tears in her eyes. "Yes, Mom." She shouted back instinctively and froze. It was the first time she'd ever called her that. Ethan squeezed her hand, smiling. She loved that. As twilight settled, the three of them sat together by the window, no longer broken pieces of a fractured family, but one story that had finally healed. And for the first time, the house felt complete. Not perfect, not flawless, but whole. If this story touched your heart, remember, love isn't always about winning or losing. Sometimes it's about understanding. Two women, one love, one choice. And in the end, forgiveness was the only answer. Because real love doesn't ask you to choose sides, it teaches you how to stand together. If you believe that love can heal, not just hurt, hit the like button and share this story with someone who needs a reminder that peace is possible. Tell me in the comments, would you have walked away or stayed to rebuild? And don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic stories of love, loss, and redemption. Because sometimes the most beautiful endings are the ones born from forgiveness.